Coming up on this edition of News Center. North Korea backs up its claims that it has developed a hydrogen bomb by conducting a nuclear test earlier today, sending shockwaves across the globe. Our reporters and an expert provide in-depth analysis of the situation. The latest provocation from the North changes a lot of things both in the Korean peninsula and around the world. We'll look at the reactions after Pyongyang drops the bomb. As the countdown to the next general election begins, lawmakers of South Korea's two main rival parties lock horns over lowering the voting age. These are the headliners, the full stories and more, all on tonight's News Center. It's 10 p.m. on a Wednesday here in Korea, coming to you live from our studio in Seoul. I'm Daniel Che, and this is News Center. President Park Geun-hye chaired an emergency meeting of the National Security Council soon after the North's claim of a hydrogen bomb test, and the South Korean government released a statement on the situation in a matter of hours after the North confirmed its attempt. We now go to our presidential office correspondent Song Ji-sun. Ji-sun, what's the latest?
Daniel, at today's meeting, President Park Geun-hye said North Korea's claim of a fourth nuclear test would be a direct challenge to South Korea's national security, posing threat to survival of the people. She said the latest provocation has the potential to shake up the security landscape in the Northeast Asia region and stressed the North must pay for its nuclear ambition and actions that go against international peace and stability. Seoul condemned Pyongyang and said a nuclear test would violate UN Security Council resolutions. It says it's seeking further sanctions to denuclearize Pyongyang in cooperation with the international community.
그동안 우리와 국제사회는 북한이 핵실험을 감행한다면 결코 묵과하지 않을 것이며 반드시 대가를 치르게 할 것임을 누차 경고해 왔습니다. 이제 정부는 국제사회와 긴밀한 협력하에 북한이 이번 핵실험에 대해 반드시 상응하는 대가를 치르도록 해야 합니다. 이를 위해서는 UN 안보리 등 국제사회의 강력한 제재는 물론 미국 등 동맹국과 우방국들의 단호한 조치를 이끌어내는 것이 중요합니다.
The top office discussed countermeasures vowing full readiness and defense against any North Korean provocations in alliance with the U.S. Not a full week had passed since there was a positive vibe looking forward into inter-Korean relations. In her New Year's message, President Park Geun-hye had expressed her hope for reunification of the two Koreas, and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un had also said the channel for dialogue is open in his New Year's message. However, Kim's message sharply contrasts with a previous claim he made last month, saying that the regime had developed an HBomb, and further reiterated on Wednesday that with the announcement that it has become a nuclear state following today's alleged HBomb test. South Korea and the U.S. both say they do not accept North Korea as a nuclear state and that Pyongyang should abandon its nuclear weapons in irrevocable and verifiable ways. Back to you.
All right, thank you for that, Ji-sun. Well, South Korea's defense ministry has rejected the North's claim to have detonated a hydrogen bomb. For more, we connect live with our defense ministry correspondent, Kim Hyun-bin, standing by at the Ministry of National Defense. Hyun-bin, what can you tell us?
South Korea's defense ministry says it has upped its defense readiness and is keeping a close eye on any unusual activities north of the border. It's also working in close coordination with the United States. Let's take a closer look.
In close collaboration under the South Korea-US alliance and with the international community, our military will take necessary measures to make North Korea pay for the nuclear test.
South Korea's defense ministry said that North Korea is always capable of conducting a nuclear test at any given time. So it was hard to predict exactly when Pyongyang will conduct another nuclear test. The ministry also said that it is unlikely that North Korea conducted a full-scale hydrogen bomb test, as an H-bomb is 100 to 1,000 times stronger than an atomic bomb, and added that it's hard to believe Pyongyang has obtained the technology. Military officials added that only a few countries, including the US and Russia, have tested hydrogen bombs, and the size of the detonations reached up to 50 megatons, while North Korea's test only reached 6 kilotons. He did say that, although there could be some hydrogen particles, these don't belong to a full H-bomb. The recent blast recorded a 4.8 on the seismic graph. which is 0.1 point lower than the nuclear test it conducted in 2013. Wednesday's test will be the fourth nuclear test conducted by North Korea, following those in 2006, 2009, and 2013. From the Ministry of National Defense in Seoul, this has been Kim Hyun-bin.
Thanks for that, Hyun-bin. South Korea's Foreign Affairs Ministry is putting all efforts to closely cooperate with its allies following North Korea's nuclear test claim. For more, we connect live to our Connie Kim, who is standing by at the Foreign Affairs Ministry. Connie, what's the latest?
Well, Daniel, South Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se met with Mark Lippert, a U.S. ambassador to South Korea, and General Curtis Scaparrotti, the commander of the U.S. Forces Korea, this Wednesday afternoon following Pyongyang's announcement that it has successfully tested a hydrogen bomb test. Now, Yoon has reportedly explained Seoul's assessment of North Korea's test claim and called on close cooperation between the two allies' diplomatic and defense authorities. The three agreed to cooperate on maintaining a strong defense posture and continue close coordination. Yoon has also reportedly talked with the foreign ministers of the United Kingdom and Australia via phone, urging the nations to send out a united message condemning Pyongyang's nuclear test. And Hwang Jung-kook, special representative for Korea Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs, also had phone conversations with the U.S., Japanese representatives of the six-party nuclear talks, and Sung Kim, the U.S. special representative for North Korea policy, to discuss response measures against the North. Now, earlier in the day, the ministry condemned Pyongyang for the nuclear test. Take a listen to what Vice Foreign Minister Im Sung-nam had to say.
North Korea's provocation is a clear violation of United Nations Security Council resolutions. In a situation like this, the Foreign Affairs Ministry sees a need for swift active measures.
The ministry said it'll be maintaining its state of emergency and it'll take steps to ensure the safety of South Korean citizens living abroad. And an interesting factor here is that North Korea did not notify the U.S. or China in advance of the test. This is a different pattern from the past when Pyongyang did let Washington and Beijing know it was planning to conduct a nuclear test.
All right, how is the international community responding to the announcement from North Korea, Connie?
Well, North Korea may be seeking to isolate itself further in the international community. First of all, China, Pyongyang's longtime ally, issued a statement saying that it strongly opposes North Korea's hydrogen bomb test. The White House said it cannot confirm Pyongyang's hydrogen bomb claim, but it condemns any violation of UN Security Council resolutions that ban North Korea from nuclear tests. Neighboring country Japan said a North Korean nuclear test is a threat to Japan's security. And taking this to a further level, at 11 a.m. on Wednesday in New York, that'll be 1 a.m. on Thursday in Korea, the United Nations Security Council will meet to discuss North Korea's claim. But it's not clear what action the 15-nation council is planning to take in response to Pyongyang's announcement, but they are expected to condemn the test and discuss slapping sanctions on the regime. It took between 5 to 23 days for the UN to slap sanctions on Pyongyang after previous tests. This has been Connie Kim from the Foreign Affairs Ministry. Back to you, Daniel.
Thank you for those updates, Connie. So, North Korea claims it's a hydrogen, not an atomic bomb, that it's tested. The regime is only known to have produced an atomic bomb so far. But what exactly is the difference between the two, and how likely is it that North Korea has produced an HBomb? Our Kwon Jang-ho explains.
Atomic bombs, or A-bombs, are also known as fission bombs, as they use a nuclear fission chain reaction to set off the explosion. Enriched pieces of uranium or plutonium are smashed together in order to release huge amounts of energy. Hydrogen bombs, or thermonuclear weapons, are also known as fusion bombs because they require a fusion reaction between hydrogen isotopes. But a fusion reaction requires an enormous amount of energy to trigger it. That energy is produced from an A-bomb. So in essence, an H-bomb requires an A-bomb inside it to set it off. The Hiroshima A-bomb, dropped in Japan in 1945, was recorded to have released about 15 kilotons of energy and carried a blast radius of 1.6 kilometers. The minimum yield an H-bomb produces is 1 megaton and has a blast radius of around 30 kilometers. There is also no limit to how big an H-bomb can be, unlike the A-bomb. But compared to its potential power, it is said to be quite easy to develop once an atomic bomb has been produced.
China first tested an atomic bomb in 1964. They tested their first H-bomb in 1967. It only took 2 years and 8 months to develop. It's been 3 years since North Korea last tested an atomic bomb, and we can safely assume that they have been trying to develop a thermonuclear weapon.
But despite North Korea's announcement, it looks like the regime has not yet developed an H-bomb.
If you look at the size of the seismic activity, there's been not much difference with their atomic bomb tests. Just by looking at the size, we can be sure it wasn't a full H-bomb.
Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
Many experts in South Korea are speculating about whether or not North Korea actually conducted an H-bomb test. Our Yi-soon tries to delve deeper into the real motive behind the test, and with one expert saying it's most likely a bluff.
North Korean affairs researcher Hyun-wook says that Wednesday's test is no different from Pyongyang's third nuclear test in February 2013, meaning it's likely the North does not yet have a hydrogen bomb.
North Korea is basically telling the world to believe that it possesses a hydrogen bomb when it isn't even showing any evidence of the test, an H-bomb warhead, for example. No country in the world can believe that.
He said that if an H-bomb had been detonated, it would have left a crater in the ground, like the Soviet Union's Tsar bomb, a 50-megaton H-bomb that left behind a nearly 4-kilometer-wide crater when it was detonated in 1961. He added that the likely motive behind the test was political.
North Korea is trying to overstate Kim Jong-un's achievements as much as possible. Its objective is to strengthen its diplomatic position ahead of the ruling Workers' Party Congress, and it's trying to put itself in a stronger position for when it has to face neighboring countries.
The expert also says the North's statement that it will not give up its nuclear program as long as the U.S. continues its offensive strategies against Pyongyang could actually be a message from the North that it wants some kind of dialogue with the U.S. Lee-Soon, Arirang News.
And now we're joined by an expert who can provide some insights into the latest turn of events from up north. Professor Kim Hyun-wook of the Korean National Diplomatic Academy is here with us. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, if North Korea's, let's start with the reactions from the international community, namely the U.S. and China and Japan.
I think in general, international community's response would be very negative. They would not try to allow the North Korea to become a nuclear state. But I think some countries, some differences exist, I think. For example, China recently sent its high-level officer to North Korea, and also there were some signs of two countries' relationship to be restored this year. But so I think there was some huge expectations of Chinese side to have the relationship to be restored and give some economic aid to North Korea. So I think for China it was such a big disappointment, and I think it was such a despair, I think. For Japan, recently Japanese Prime Minister Abe has tried a lot of security enactment and also revised defense guidelines. Also tried to make a self-defense force to be more supportive to the U.S. military's operations in this region. So I think in that sense, there were some moves of Japanese military to become a normal. Also tried to support the U.S. military operation based upon the concept of collective security. And ultimate goal of Abe administration is to revise its constitutions. So I think in these kinds of moves will be expedited if North Korea, gives such a big threat to Japan.
Right, and if North Korea's claims of the H-bomb being successful, if that's true, does that in any way help them legitimize their place as a nuclear state in the world?
I think that's some calculations of North Korea. I mean, North Korea has been, trying to develop its nuclear weapons to an advanced level, by which North Korea, I think, would be, recognized as a nuclear state. So before North Korea developed uranium-based and plutonium-based atomic bombs, but this time it's a hydrogen bomb, which I think is a much higher level of nuclear program development. This kinds of North Korea to be admitted and recognized as a nuclear state would give it a much, bigger and huge, bargaining chip with the United States. For example, now it is a very asymmetrical, negotiation between the United States and North Korea, because North Korea by NPT regime is not recognized as no nuclear state. But if it is recognized as a nuclear state, now North Korea can have a deal and negotiation with the United States in a more symmetrical level. But I don't think the U.S. and international community would recognize North Korea as a nuclear state, but because that would give much more headache. I mean, also NPT international law is not recognized as a nuclear state, so I don't think it's that easy.
All right. Pyongyang seems quite fixated on using separate different terms with every test they hold, in terms of the HBomb test they had and the nuclear test they had before. What's the hidden motive behind this move?
I think the motive for North Korea is to bring the United States into the dialogue table with North Korea. In order for that, North Korea needs to show more threats to the United States. One of the plans that North Korea is doing is to have nuclear warheads to be tapped on top of ICBM long-range missiles, which theoretically can target the mainland United States. So far, the plutonium, uranium-based nuclear weapons, atomic bombs, they were too heavy, which is too heavy to be tapped on the long-range missiles. Long-range missiles with the heavy nuclear weapons, launched, but in the middle of its route onto the United States, just fall down to the Pacific Sea. So hydrogen bomb, which is much lighter but much powerful, I think it gives much more possibility for to have the long-range missiles to be actually targeting the United States, which is such a big sign of huge, much bigger threat to the United States.
Further isolation and sanctions seems inevitable. North Korea continues to paint itself to a corner. What's the regime's next move, knowing what to expect?
I think timing is very important. We all knew that sometime North Korea would do the fourth nuclear test, because we know that North Korea is now continuing to develop its nuclear weapons to become a de facto nuclear state. But why now? I think that's some question we need to ask. Now the United States, recovering from its economic distress, becoming more active in foreign policies, active in its Asia policies. I think the U.S. policy towards China would be much more assertive, sometime next year or next year. So China knows that, and based upon this, structure in Asia, China wanted to have more closer relationship with Russia and with North Korea, vis-a-vis U.S. pressure on China. So I think the timing is very good, because I think the North Korea knows that even though North Korea tests its fourth nuclear test, China would not be willing to dump North Korea. So I think this kinds of moves of North Korea, next moves after the sanction phases ends, I think North Korea would try to have more balanced diplomacy between the United States and China.
So it's calculated by North Korea. Well, we were expecting to see some top North Korean officials at the Davos Forum, but unfortunately, that might not be the case, judging by how the complexion of diplomacy for North Korea has changed with their provocation.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the Davos Forum visit of a high-level official of North Korea, I think, have been also one of the plans, based upon also the plans of fourth nuclear test. Maybe some of the reasons of a visit to Davos Forum is economic diplomacy, trying to bring some foreign investment on North Korea. So based upon this kinds of backgrounds of North Korean nuclear test, that kinds of economic diplomacy, I don't think would be very easy as expected. But the policy platforms of North Korea now, dual policies, being nuclear state, but at the same time to build the economic capabilities. Based upon this policy, I think the North Korea would try to build these policies all together. So based upon that platform, I think that will go to Davos Forum.
They'll be trying to get two birds with one stone. Very ambitious of North Korea. Well, thank you so much for your time, Professor Kim Hyun-wook. We look forward to having you here again sometime.
Thank you very much.
Well, North Korea announced on Wednesday afternoon that it has successfully tested a hydrogen bomb in the morning. While most defense experts around the world seem to doubt the North's capacity to have fulfilled its claims, this has drawn immediate reaction from the international community. Our Woo Soo-young tells us more.
The US won't accept North Korea as a nuclear state. That's what the White House said on a statement regarding North Korea's alleged hydrogen bomb test on Wednesday. Although Pyongyang's claims are yet to be confirmed, Washington condemns any violation of UN resolutions and will protect and defend its allies in the region as well as respond to any provocations. North Korea's closest ally, China, also showed firm opposition in a daily briefing at its foreign ministry, denying any prior knowledge of the alleged experiment.
China will firmly promote the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula and insist on solving the peninsula nuclear issue within six-party talks framework.
British Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond, who is currently in a two-day visit to China's capital, Beijing, said that if the test reports are true, it is, quote, a breach of UN resolutions and a provocation he condemns without reservation. He also told reporters that both the UK and China oppose the test and want to see resumption of UN six-party talks for the North's denuclearization.
There can always be more done to strengthen and tighten the way sanctions are applied, and I would urge all of our partners to ensure that they are applied as consistently and effectively as possible.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe also slammed the North's claims.
North Korea's nuclear test is a serious threat to our nation's security and absolutely cannot be tolerated. We strongly denounce it.
France and Australia have also joined global condemnation of the alleged nuclear testing, while Russia's foreign ministry was more cautious with its statement. It called on all interested sides to preserve maximum restraint and to not take actions that could rouse the uncontrolled growth of tensions in Northeast Asia. Woo Soo-young, Arirang News.
And for more on how Korea reacted to the unexpected developments from North Korea, we are joined in the studio by our Hwang Ji-hye. Ji, how are the people dealing with the latest provocations from North?
It's really business as usual here in South Korea. Not many are panicking. Still, there are people concerned about the North going through more nuclear tests or other type of provocations. Take a look.
First they said it's a nuclear bomb test, and then they said it's a hydrogen bomb test. That's even stronger. So it does worry me a little. But I don't think it's a big deal. It will not be well received by the international community. North Korea will only end up further isolating itself.
I feel like this can turn into a huge threat for us this time. So I think it's important to act quickly in response to the situation.
I mean, we've never really experienced any actual damage, so I don't think anything catastrophic will happen.
So, Jay, upon hearing the news, President Park Geun-hye herself assured business leaders they should stay calm and not to be too shaken up about this. But the market did remain jittery today. And Seoul's economic policymakers, they also held an emergency meeting. Could you walk us through what the officials discussed in that meeting?
Sure. Temporary and limited impact is the kind of effect that they're expecting this time, as seen after many other provocations by the North in the past, including previous nuclear tests on the South Korean economy. High-level officials from the Finance Ministry, the Bank of Korea, and Financial Services Commission came together for this meeting. Although they agreed that the impact will not be major and will likely prove short-lived, they cautioned over short-term volatility in local markets that could be prompted by additional provocations from the North. And South Korea's central bank has also held a separate meeting on the latest threat, but came up with the same conclusion, putting markets at ease. Policymakers also pledged to keep a close eye on future movements in the market and run a 24-hour monitoring system.
We're no stranger to provocations, but we never get used to it. So, Ji, how did the market close today?
Well, it wasn't, despite this news from the North, local shares wasn't really rattling about the news, and they managed to recover the losses they saw during the day right after the story broke, with the benchmark Kospi once dipping to the 1,912 level, but closing at 1,925.43, down just over 0.25% from the previous session. The tech-heavy Kosdaq actually ended up roughly 0.5% 0.3% from Tuesday at 687.27. The Korean won slid against the greenback to the lowest point since September last year, hitting $1,197.9 from $1,188 at yesterday's close. The drop comes at a time when the local currency was already shaky due to the weakening Chinese yuan.
All right, thank you, Jia, for those number updates and, of course, for coming in today.
You're welcome.
In local politics, South Korea's rival parties are locked in a fresh dispute, this time over the legal age of voters ahead of the April general election. It is complicating the already sticky process of redrawing the nation's electoral districts. For more, we turn to Shin Se-min.
With Korea's electoral map still in limbo ahead of a general election in April, the country's two main rival parties have a new focus: the voting age. Ruling Saenuri Party Chairman Kim Moo-sung on Wednesday rejected the opposition party's proposal to lower the voting age, saying he's not considering lowering the age for the upcoming parliamentary elections. The ruling party's refusal signals that it is concerned about the elections in the capital area, expected to be one of the most closely contested areas with a margin of just a few hundred votes. Kim reiterated an earlier proposal by National Assembly Speaker Chung Ih-hwa, who wanted to lower the voting age starting with the 2017 presidential election and increase the number of elected seats from 246 to 253. On Tuesday, Moon Jae-in, chair of the main opposition Minju Party of Korea, had proposed lowering the voting age from 19 to 18, starting with the upcoming general elections, in exchange for passing a package of economic bills pushed by the ruling party and the president, and a compromise on the electoral map. With lawmakers failing to redraw the electoral map by the end of 2015, when the previous one expired, the National Assembly is preparing to go to court as a defendant for the first time in 51 years. The Seoul Administrative Court is set to take on the case after a group of candidates filed suit against the National Assembly on Monday, saying the parliament has violated the law by not resolving the issue. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories, this Wednesday marks the 24th anniversary of protests by former victims of Japan's wartime sexual enslavements in front of the Japanese embassy in Seoul. The occasion comes roughly 1 week after Korea and Japan's landmark settlement on the issue that has been stirring up controversy ever since. The agreement stipulates the Japanese government issue an official apology and provide compensation to the women. But the elderly victims and the organizer of the weekly protests, the Korean Council for the Women Drafted for Military Sexual Slavery, or Jeongdaehyub, other civic groups and students have rejected the agreement, saying it lacks sincerity and allows Japan to avoid legal responsibility for its wartime atrocities. Demonstrations also took place in other cities in Korea and around the globe, including in LA, Washington, New York, and Berlin. Shifting gears now, the world's largest electronic show officially kicks off in roughly 12 hours' time in Las Vegas. As usual, it provides a venue for groundbreaking tech items, including ultra-high-definition televisions and self-driving cars. Kim Ji-yeon brings us this report.
Korea's biggest tech firm Samsung Electronics gave the world a sneak peek of its new high-end UHD TV before its official curtain call at this year's Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. Samsung Super UHD TVs have been winning rave reviews for their picture quality. The sets reduce reflections caused by ambient lighting, resulting in a sharper picture regardless of the viewing environment.
We unveiled the second generation of our Super UHD TV. We applied the latest quantum dot technology to show a more accurate and more-than-life picture quality to our customers.
Quantum dots are tiny particles that emit a different color of light according to their size. Applied to TVs, the colors are more accurate and the images are more vibrant compared to traditional LCDs. Samsung's local rival, LG Electronics, unveiled its OLED displays to boast its UHD picture quality. They also use quantum dot technology. Meanwhile, a lot of startups are also hoping to catch the spotlight, like this company that produces wearable inflating airbags.
Being at this CES is for us a big opportunity to showcase our products, to showcase our technology, and demonstrate that we can bring significant protection for people in terms in different applications.
Some 30 Korean companies are among the roughly 3,000 firms taking part in this year's CES. It'll be the place to see the latest in all things tech-related, including high-end electric cars, self-driving automobiles, and drones. The show, which runs through Saturday, is expected to draw more than 170,000 visitors from around the world. Kim Jung, Arirang News.
Prospects for the Korean economy are not so rosy. The Bank of Korea said Wednesday that the country's potential growth rate stands at a yearly average of 3 to 3.2% for 2015 to 2018. After topping the 5% mark in the early 2000s, the country's potential growth has been going downward. The BOK official attributed the decrease to overall weak global growth as well as slowing exports and slump in domestic consumption. The official added that the country needs to strengthen its economic fundamentals and R&D to secure momentum. Satirical French magazine Charlie Hebdo arrived at newsstands and in convenience stores around Paris this morning, in part an act of defiance. The magazine released an anniversary issue marking 1 year since 2 Islamist militants stormed Hebdo's headquarters and killed many of its staff. Bruce Harrison joins me now in the studio for more. Bruce, despite losing so many editorialists, the magazine soldiers on.
That's right, Daniel. If anything, it's only upped its controversial cartoons and reports in the face of its critics. The cover of the anniversary issue shows God wearing a blood-splattered cloak and beard, and the headline, "The Murderer is Still on the Run." The magazine's well known for its satirical covers that ridicule political and religious leaders. Ridicule of the Prophet Muhammad is apparently what led the gunmen to attack Hebdo's offices. But many of those loyal to the magazine said the threat of terror should not hamper free speech.
You have to protect certain values, and I'm 100% behind the ideas of Charlie Hebdo and with these people.
Not everyone's happy with the magazine's anniversary cover. According to The Guardian, the Vatican's daily newspaper said this kind of treatment is not new and misleading. Religious figures have repeatedly been condemned violently in the name of God.
And Bruce, FIFA is actually trying to move from one of the biggest corruption scandals in history of the organization, and a new president may be exactly what it needs. One of the candidates to run the World Soccer Body has put forth plans to clean things up.
Sure, that candidate, his name is Ali bin al-Hussein. He's from Jordan. He's a member of the royal family, actually. And oddly enough, he ran for the presidency last year and lost to FIFA President Sepp Blatter, who was suspended last month for his alleged role in the center of the corruption scandal. Now, part of the reason the committee that purged Blatter believes things got so out of hand is because there are no term limits. Blatter served more than 17 years as FIFA president, so in his election manifesto, bin al-Hussein is proposing a maximum of 2 four-year terms for the FIFA president and executive committee members. Now, he's also calling for transparency, which would include published senior executive salaries. Bin al-Hussein's making a bold stride for the presidency with the election less than 2 months away. And Daniel, as you can imagine, he really wants to win, considering he lost last year to the now disgraced Sepp Blatter, who's been stripped of his role as president.
Persistence is definitely a strong suit, but 2 months, that's not nearly enough time for Blatter to get back on the ballot. His suspension lasts all the way until the year 2024.
That's right, not a threat.
Not a threat. Well, Bruce, thanks for sharing a bit of the world with us today.
All right, thanks, Daniel.
Seems like there was a reason why it felt colder than any other day today. Accordingly, today is also known as Sohan, one of the seasonal divisions, which is traditionally the coldest time of the year in Korea. For more on the latest weather updates, here's Lee Ji-yeon.
Hello, Daniel. Yes, today is Sohan, so it comes as no surprise that the cold snap has gripped the whole peninsula under a cold wave, with a respective advisory being issued in some parts of the country.
So I guess that means we'll wake up to some freezing morning lows tomorrow, even colder than today?
Yes, conditions will get colder with a cold wave advisory issued for most parts of Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces, including Cheollon and Chuncheon. These regions will get up to a low of minus 12 degrees Celsius tomorrow morning. And here in the capital, we'll wake up to a low of minus 6. And other regions will also have a chilly morning of minus 2 in Daegu and minus 4 for Daejeon. And afternoon highs will be also lower than today, as the daily high here in Seoul will only get up to 0, 4 for Daejeon and 5 for Daegu. Now, dry conditions are also going to be worse. A dry weather advisory has been upgraded to a warning in some parts of the eastern coastlines, and a dry weather advisory remains in place for some of the Gyeongsang-do provinces. Now, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And before we wrap things up, we're getting reports that Seoul-based Nuclear Safety and Security Commission started radiological monitoring for possible nuclear fallout after North Korea's alleged hydrogen nuclear test. It could take up to 4 days before the results are out. It is unlikely to have contaminated the south with radioactive waste, especially considering the velocity of the wind as well as direction. And that's all from us for now. As always, thank you for watching.